Oh, my phone's here. I think it's time for an update. I'll get to the news, which is breaking news about Mr. Trump. We're going to pull out of the Iran deal. But I mentioned earlier, I kind of wondered if one of the person that was hit on a bicycle last night in Flower Bluff, if it was one of my friends. I think it was. I just read on the local news, these go up real time, right after I met. His name was Stephen Clark. He was 60 years old. I think that's my friend Stephen that you saw on the video the other day, on many videos with friends. I believe it was my friend Stephen who I prayed for him to get healed. He had some problem with his shoulder, and then he came back up and said, "Man, I think it worked, John," and I did a quick video. And I remember when I tagged that video, it'll give you like little pictures to tag. I don't get a whole lot of choices, but I believe you see Stephen with the hat in that video. And he used to ride, that's why I thought a lot of my friends, their transportation is riding bikes at night. So I think that's who was killed. We'll find out for sure, but you might even go back and look at that video. I might have asked him, "How old are you, Stephen?" And I think that was him. We'll see. The big news, of course, today is President Trump pulled out of the Iran deal. Now, let's talk a little bit. When you hear me talk about media and fake news, all we mean primarily by that is how they drive the narrative. How they drive the narrative. How Democratic top prosecutor out of New York, who the Democrats love because he was going after Trump, how some media feel instead of reporting that he had a black woman that he forced to call him his master and openly referred to her in inner circles as his black slave woman, that the media would kind of like, that's not a big thing to some sources. That's what we mean by fake news. Though those are accusations, obviously they were around for a while because Trump tweeted in 2013, meaning the people the inside politics, Democrats up in New York, Trump used to work with a lot of them, they all knew it. The insiders, because Trump tweeted, said, "Wait till you find out about Schneiderman." Now, the Iran deal. A few things we got to mention. The Logan Act. Again, you're going to see fake news here. Fake news. Caller Times, all of them, they do it. Non-stop. The highest levels of CO2 in the atmosphere for the last 8,000 years since we've been recording. Only been recording those levels, what? The last 80 years, maybe? Give the impression. But we have other scientific studies, I read them, that talked about the CO2 level actually being much higher at different ages of the earth, depending on creationism and so forth, okay? Now, real quick, the Iran deal was a deal that Mr. Obama and John Kerry made with Iran. At the time the deal was made, there were critics, there were people. Mr. Obama, look, there were certain things they did in order to accomplish certain things going around, and that was one of them with the Iran deal. You had a lot of critics of the deal, and then you had some of our allies that said, even though it's not a good deal, it puts our foot in the door to get somewhat of inspections and all. Now I remember, because we have demonized Russia in this country, but I remember when some of the critics of the Iranian deal, Iran is one of the biggest sponsors of terrorism in the world, and some actually asked in their assemblies, their public assemblies, political assemblies in Iran, they chant, "Death to America, kill America, kill America." They still did it through the deal, they still did it after the deal. They said, well, how could we do a deal with them? And the Democratic leaders in this country, whether Mr. Obama and others, they said, well, they got to do that for political purposes. During those same times, Iran sponsored terrorism that killed Americans. Can you imagine saying, let's work with Russia? Mr. Trump's working with Russia. And he made a deal with Russia. And Russia actually has finance the murder of Americans right when Trump is making the deal. Surely he's covering up for the Russian dossier, you see, because Obama was praised. Now, John Kerry was trying to get the Nobel Peace Prize, and they wanted to end the Obama administration on a high note, but there were many critics of the deal, and then some said, well, now that we made it, we made it. And the deal primarily, the bad thing about the deal was it released a lot of billions and billions and billions of dollars, which there were sanctions on Iran by the U.S., put sanctions on them. And over time, the idea is to, get them to cooperate. So, Mr. Obama flew cash, and they didn't want to report this, but unmarked U.S. planes dumped billions of dollars of currency, U.S. currency. And that was kind of a behind-the-scenes thing. And right at that time, Iran released some American prisoners that they had. And we have a law in this country, a rule that we do not pay ransom to release our people. And that's what happened then. Of course, if Mr. Trump did that, that'd be it. They'd be shooting for impeachment. Mr. Obama did it, and it was praised. That's what we mean fake news, the inability to rightly discern any of it. Now, all that criticism aside, when Trump pulled out just about 20 minutes ago, he gave the reasons, and look, they're legitimate reasons, because the deal also empowered Iran just to slow down on their short-term nuclear ambitions, but it pumped so much money, and they were still allowed to develop their long-term ambitions. And also they were allowed to use all the money we released, billions and billions and billions, beside the cash that's secretly flown in by Obama. That money directly supports particular terrorist groups in the world who kill Americans. And I remember even after that deal, as a news watcher, one of our naval ships, the motor went out or something, we strayed into Iranian waters. They took our men, sort of like hostages, our sailors. After the deal, they disgraced them. They showed pictures of them, disgraced them. And then finally they released them because John Kerry spoke, and that was a disgrace. That was a show of tremendous bad faith. They mocked us after we made the deal. And the media reported it that, look how great the deal is because of John Kerry's great relationships with Iran. We got our guys out. That was a disgrace that they did that. Now, the other thing, there's a few you could focus on. Let's talk the Logan Act. The Logan Act was an act at the founding of our country because we're breaking away from British rule and we're founding a new country. And the Logan Act was a rule in our country that said U.S. citizens on their own cannot engage in governmental diplomatic actions with other countries. Meaning, as a young country, if we had somebody say, I'm going to break away, Jeffersoners, I'm going to go ahead and do it on my own. I get this contact with Paris or... Okay, that was what that act was. You can't bypass our newly formed government. Now, the Logan Act, I don't know if anyone has ever been charged by that act. But that act meant that if I on my own contacted Putin and had negotiations and said I'm negotiating for the U.S., then I'd be violating the Logan Act. I'm allowed to contact any foreign person as an American citizen, but I cannot actually do politics or diplomatic stuff. Well, when Mr. Trump got in, right after he was elected, before the inauguration, General Mike Flynn, who has now pled guilty to a felony, Mike Flynn, of course, was having conversations as an incoming member of the Trump administration, as a military man. He'd had conversations, of course, with other military people, including people from Russia and all. That was common. Everybody did that. The Democrats and the news media, some said that's a violation of the Logan Act. You are not yet in office in the cabinet because Trump is still not yet inaugurated. Everybody, Obama, every incoming president, the team that you have coming in with you, had these negotiations because that's normal. But you had so-called serious media. This is a violation, but they knew that it wasn't. They lied. That's what we mean by fake news. Okay? And they all do it. The Caller Times and all of them. They have that in their mentality. The fake media do it. Now, what one example would there be in modern history where the Logan Act seriously was violated? Where you could bring charges, indict, and put him... John Kerry. This last week, John Kerry, along with other people that have been big critics of Trump, and saying you can't pull out of this, though he has the presidential authority to have done what he did today, they were openly criticizing Trump. Many openly charging him, Flynn, the Logan Act. Kerry was in Iran this past week, privately having discussions with the Iranian leadership. Mr. Kerry, as a known critic of Trump, trying to kind of do somewhat deals. That's a violation of the Logan Act. That he flew over there, was there right before this deal, and his party openly criticizing, and then having, if you will, secret talks with the Iranian leadership. But what would the media say about that? Oh, that's nothing. As a former Secretary of State, they all have friendships. No, he was violating the Logan Act. But they only want it when it serves their purpose. That's what fake media is. So this is the second little update for today. I don't want to go too long. So we're going to be out of the Iranian deal. Most think it's good. I think it's good that we pulled out. I do understand some. I'm not an absolute ignoramus, and many liberals only watch liberal. MSNBC, that's it. They have no view. Some conservatives only listen to conservative. I try to look at it all. Granted, there were some serious people that felt now that we're in the deal, we should stay in it only because it gives an opportunity and somewhat for us to still have the so-called inspections and all. But Iran showed themselves in bad faith. And it was also made known that they could support as many terrorists as they want. But we pumped all that extra money into their economy, into the Iranian government, with the knowledge that much of that would directly fund people that are killing Americans in various things. So that's what we mean when we say fake media. And it's a shame because I think most of the local media, most people are getting paid to be a talking head. Most people are getting paid. Okay, this is in front of you. The movie Anchorman was funny. I liked it. A little risque. But I like Will Ferrell. I remember it. And it was a mock on like chauvinism. And at one point in Anchorman, he has a new executive, and she's black. You know, it's playing into the racism. And I think it was the funny Steve Cardell or something. And he's like, he has to hold his mouth, and he finally blurts out, black, black, black. So it played into old stereotypes. But I remember at one part in that movie, they put they say, oh, Will Ferrell, you know, that part of, what is it, Anchorman Bundy or something. He'll read anything you put in front of him. So they put a script in front of him where he was cursing and this and that, and he didn't even know he read it. It's but I wonder if how many people that, you know, the seriousness of Mr. Flynn, and media took it serious. Democrats and people, you violated it. Now, if you want it, it's Kerry. If you want it, it's Kerry. You let those people get away with a lot of stuff. You let Mrs. Clinton speak to the families of the Benghazi that died in Benghazi, and she lied to those families. And later on, it was shown that she lied to those families, convincing those families. We wanted to get the ambassador Stevens out of there, but he just wouldn't go. You know how he is. And then later it came out, Ambassador Stevens was sending texts and emails to the State Department to Hillary. We're going to get killed over here. That's how the later, but yet and that came out later, meaning the Ambassador Stevens in the newly established capital in Benghazi, Libya during that debacle. Our U.S. ambassador was saying, look, they're scoping out the place. They're going to kill us. We don't have the proper protection. And Hillary's State Department didn't want to give any more protection for a political reason, because it would look bad. They were promoting Libya as a great success, and lo and behold, they were killed and murdered. And there was a big controversy in our country. But Hillary Clinton and others, they got a hold of some of those people, those families, and said, oh, we wanted them to get out. We warned them how dangerous it was, but they were so stubborn and patriotic, they wanted to die for their country. And we found out she used a line like that to the families and the media. Oh. So, this is number 2. Logan Act.